everyone. It is exactly 6 p.m. And it is a nice summer day, so I want to go back outside. So I'm going to go ahead and get us started on time. We have a few panelists here with us today. And so I'm going to go ahead and ask Commissioner Blacknell if he'll join me as well.
Meeting as an attendee and will be muted throughout the meeting.
And let's see your
Requirement checks for small businesses whose operations are being disrupted. And when we called our post offices
okay.
to find out
Let's see
what
you
happened,
getting started, logging in.
everybody said, well,
So I am Commissioner Sydelle Moore. My colleague Commissioner Blacknell and I represent two of the three single member districts in Langston. So we want to go ahead and welcome you to tonight's neighborhood meeting for single member districts 5B03, 5B04, and 5B05. This is our first single member district meeting since coming back from the recess. And so we wanted to spend a lot of time this evening talking about the Summer Crime Initiative and some of the things we're doing to improve safety in the neighborhood. So we have a few guests with us tonight. We have Captain Jerome Merrill from NPD. And then we have from the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement in Kinga Garrett. And from the Department of Behavioral Health, I believe we have Andrew Hall. So if we could just get everyone to go ahead and unmute and join us so that we can go ahead and start the discussion about some of the things that are going on in our neighborhood in terms of addressing violent crime. I'm going to go ahead and start with a brief update from Captain Merrill. If we can hear from you first on the status of things since you're our summer crime captain.
Good evening. We're coming to the end of the Summer Crime Initiative. We've had some, I don't know exactly, did you want to overall the whole summer or?
Yeah, I mean, if you just want to talk about what being the summer crime captain means and the kinds of things that you've been working on from a strategic perspective.
Well, it's just been a lot of work. The main thing we've been trying to work on is the Benning Road corridor, because we noticed that, you know, the drug addiction and the homelessness and the mental consumers in the Benning Road corridor, they're the ones that feed the crews, and as far as Langston and Red Zone and 21st and I and Carver Langston. So our angle is to get DBH back out, which I think they're coming back out, and we're trying to attack this as a service, as bringing other government services together as well, because we noticed that we can't police our way out of it due to the, like I said, the addiction, the homelessness, the domestic violence and stuff like that. So we bring in our other government partners in, but we've been successful so far this summer as far as making good arrests, especially last week. We arrested someone wanted for murder. We took 3 guns off the street last week in 507, especially the SCI area. So we've been successful. We've also been working with the United States Attorney's Office and getting these people that we arrest, getting stayaways from the area, also getting them held, because a lot of them are getting re-released right back out to the street. So it's kind of hard for us to have our crime reduction strategy go forward because, like I said, the criminals kept coming back out onto the street. So that was an issue. We have had success with that lately. So we think we're coming along quite well this summer.
All right, well, thank you for that update. And I just want to highlight the fact that really we have so many agencies on the line today because we're really trying to work on taking a much more comprehensive approach to addressing a lot of the issues that we see in the community, because a lot of them are interrelated. So, you know, just like Captain Merrill mentioned, you know, if you've got people out here who are using the drugs, you know, you're going to have people who are coming there to profit from that. And that can lead to violent crime and other issues in our community. And so as part of talking about that comprehensive approach, we have a new office in DC, or new to some of you, it's been around for a few years, called the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement, or the ONSE Office. And so if you, I think we've got Dana and Nkinga on the line. So if you guys want to speak to a little bit of the work that you all have been doing to help implement that comprehensive approach, to public safety, you know, especially the work around violence interrupters and helping us to organize as a community to get other services.
Okay, well, good afternoon. First, Sydelle, are you able to see Dana on? I think she's having a hard time getting on the speakers. Do you see her? You're muted, Sydelle.
Sorry, and King, I was just saying to Dana, I can ask to start your video, but I can't start it for you. So I just sent you a button to be able to start it if you're able.
Okay.
But if we can just hear you and not see you, that's fine too.
Okay, I think she's troubleshooting the issue. I'm getting to her.
Okay.
Okay, well, I'll start, and then once she comes on, she can just kind of fill you in on some more general information. So my name is Nkenga Garrett. I am the program analyst at the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement, and I oversee the Violence Intervention Initiative. That initiative is one that is located in 20 priority communities across the district. We have partnered with 3 community-based organizations. I apologize, 3 community-based organizations to offer what we call a person-centered approach to violence intervention. So what we do is we identify 10 of the high-risk individuals in each priority community, and then we work to build solid relationships with those individuals to help usher them or shepherd them through what we call stages of readiness for change. And that is helping them get to a point where, from a point of where they are essentially comfortable in their behaviors and moving them through a series of exercises to help them understand that their actions are detrimental not only to themselves, but also their families and their communities. There are essentially 2 violence intervention programs running in the district. One is run out of the Office of Attorney General's office, and that's called Cure Violence. That program is more of a community-wide program. And ours is, of course, run out of the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement. And that program is more of a person-centered model. And so specifically in Carver, Langston, we have identified 5 high-risk individuals that our violence interventionists are working with. And each one of those individuals are at a varied stages in the stages of readiness for change. This approach takes a little longer because it's really changing mindset and getting them to a point where they recognize, again, the detriment of their behaviors, and also getting them to a point where they're ready to accept supports and services that allow them to further their education, find employment, and work on some other personal development goals that they identify for themselves. Admittedly, we've had a lot of turnover in the Carver Langston area. I think we are on our 3rd team there. And so we are working to build other solid relationships with those individuals that are coming to our attention. So far we have 5, and we're working to build solid relationships and trust with another 5. Carver Langston is a little unique to some of our other communities because, as you know, Carver and Langston have their historic conflict, but there are also some internal conflicts within each of those communities that we are sorting through with the individuals that we are working with. So that's just a brief overview of our program. If anyone has any questions, they're more than welcome to chime in and ask.
Sure. So I just wanted to point out folks who might be new to these. It is encouraged and welcome for you to ask questions at any point. And I just want to point out to you that on the bottom of your screen, you'll see a bar that gives you lots of different options. If you just want to type a question, you can use the Q&A button, or you can raise your hand, and then we'll call on you and you'd be able to ask a question. I just wanted to hear if we have any questions in terms of what we've heard so far from the ONSE office or from MPD. And so we do have a question, Ketty Spomer. Why is there such a turnover in the violence interrupters in Carver, Langston?
That's a really good question. Oftentimes we are working with individuals who have similar lived experiences as some of the community members that we're working, that we are working with, and that, and again, some of them are in different stages of readiness as well, and so we are finding that we are trying to get the strongest candidates or the strongest folks in Carver Langston to work with the individuals that we serve.
Okay, that was a good question. Anything else from anyone else out there on what we've heard so far, MPD or from the ONSE office? Okay, I do see one more question popping up in the window here. What's the criteria / goals that the 5 individuals are working toward with the interventionists, and what are the ultimate goals?
So with individuals that the criteria for individuals that that we work with is essentially that they're known to be main contributors of violence in the area. And that's broad because there are some who influence violence, and then there are others who actively participate in the violence. And the goals that they are working towards are personal goals. We don't have a set goal list for individuals, those that we're working with, because they are individuals, and there are certain things that are more meaningful to them. So for one person, it may be employment. For another person, it may be better family relationships. Whatever the goal is that motivates them to disrupt the cycles of violence that they find themselves in is what we honor and work with them towards. I mean, the ultimate goal, of course, is to reduce violence in the community, but the motivators for violence are different for each individual. And so we take our cues from them, and then work with them on what they feel is most important. You're muted, Sydelle.
I keep doing that. Can you go into, this is from Ariel, can you go into more about the conflict between Carver and Langston and the conflict within?
The conflict between Carver and Langston is one that's pretty historic. It's a historical conflict that has gone on for quite some time. I think I don't want to speak for community members, and so I know that there are some community members on this call who can, who can talk a little bit more about that. And then other conflicts that come up are interpersonal often. So it may be an argument. It may be something that happened in the past. It really varies. So you have a historical conflict, but you also have just, interpersonal conflicts that escalate to more than then, that escalate to violence.
Can you hear me, Sydelle?
Yes, I can hear you. Dana, we got you.
Great. Is it okay if I chime in on two of the things that Kinga just spoke to, just to add a little context to those questions?
Definitely. Go ahead.
Perfect. And thank you, Kinga, for the presentation and for your answers. And I wanted to just speak to two things really quick from the questions that popped up.
And Dana, if you could just share who you are for the folks who might not know.
Yes, ma'am. So my name is Dana McDaniel, and I am the Deputy Director for the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement. I work really closely with my team member and Kinga Garrett with trying to provide our VI supports and really strengthening our VI model as we conduct our work in Ward 5. I too am a Ward 5 resident as well and familiar with the Ward 5 area. So that allows us to better navigate in terms of doing our work. And Kinga mentioned some of the goals. I know there was a question about the goals and criteria for the tiered individuals, and I just wanted to elaborate just a bit on that. And so each of our tiered individuals receive what we call action plans, and those action plans have goals for them in 5 key domains. And although the goals vary on our individual base, we have 5 basic domains we focus on with each of our persons to make sure that they're meeting those needs in a positive way, and we assist with moving them forward in that, so that, as Kinga said, we minimize violence and then improve if they will be present in the community, making sure that they are doing so in a positive way. Another thing that, and I too want to turn the floor over to any community members who can speak better to the history of the conflict. But one of the things that are currently fueling that conflict is a lot of different neighborhoods blending and mixing in the 21st community. And it's really made it difficult for us to get a great handle on who's causing violence or who's participating in violence, because oftentimes those persons aren't living in that 21st community. They're kind of floating in and out. So we do have an idea and strategies around how we're going to approach that. So I just wanted to add a little context to those and then turn it over if any community members have info about the history of the conflict there.
Mm-hmm. And do feel free to raise your hand, or if you want to type a comment in the Q&A box as well, you're welcome to do that so that we can see what you're interested in talking about. We do have a question from Latoya Moore. What is the hiring process for the violence interrupters? Are they compensated for these appointments? And Kinga, I think you're on mute if you're talking to us. I think you're still. Okay.
So the hiring process is funneled through our community-based organization. So what is extremely key for us, number one, is making sure that those we hire have roots in the communities in which they will be working. So either they are from the community, they live, they have a historical connection to the community. So maybe their family members are there, maybe they grew up there, or maybe they currently live there. So that's extremely important to us, because the relationships that we have are everything. And without the relationships, we're not able to build the trust needed to implement our person-centered model, and then also broker different peace agreements. So that's important. The other thing is the ability to do the work. That's extremely important. And so there's, a series of different criteria that our interventionists have to meet in order to prove that they're able to do the work. And also just, history, any history that they have in brokering peace agreements. So whether that's formal or informal. And yes, they are definitely compensated. These are paid positions.
Mm-hmm. And I just want to, without getting into too much detail, really highlight the fact that, there were some recent hires really of guys off the street. One guy in particular who's been very active in the community for years. I'm so excited, about him being on board. When he's out and about in the community, I'll let him speak up for himself. But, just really excited about seeing, it really is true. It really is part of the model that we're having people from our own community really try to help engage in solving some of the issues that we're having. So we have had some turnover, but we are making some steps in the right direction with people who are really committed to the neighborhood. So I think that's good. Okay, so I think we've had a lot of questions for the ONSE office so far, and I do want us to get a chance to talk to some of the other agencies that are here. So thank you guys so much. If you want to hang around a bit and listen to some of the other issues that we're dealing with in the community, I think a lot of this is interrelated. So I'm going to call on actually Department of Behavioral Health next for them to talk a little bit about the work that they've been doing. And I think we've got Anthony Hall on the line from DBH. And then we're going to follow that up with a conversation with DPW, the Department of Public Works. So Anthony, if you want to go ahead and unmute so that you can share with us a little bit about what you've been working on. And I think a lot of neighbors are really especially interested in hearing about your work at Starburst Plaza.
All right, first, thank you all for inviting us. My name is Anthony Hall. I'm director of the Department of Behavioral Health's Community Response Team. The Community Response Team is the 24-hour direct service adult arm for DBH. So we oversee all of the community crisis calls, all of our co-responses, and our diversion partnership with MPD. Community-based outreach falls under our umbrella, community response to traumatic and crisis events, and kind of a lot of those other direct service touch points all fall under the guise of this team. Our specific function is typically crisis management, assessment, and then service connection. So a lot of people view us as kind of that front door. We do a lot of the legwork to then encourage individuals to actively engage in services. I think the crisis side is pretty straightforward. What happens is when someone makes a call to the team, we got 2 sites. We'll take some very basic information, then we go out and do a direct assessment of that individual. Those are usually the times where we are trying to identify if somebody needs an immediate psychiatric hospitalization or some other immediate service. The flip side is that community outreach piece, the recognition that it requires several touches often for individuals to connect with services, and that sometimes meaningful connections with services don't necessarily happen on the first go round. So what I think what people often see is, oh, this person was gone for a week, they were doing good, and then all of a sudden they're right back out here, and not necessarily recognizing that there's a lot that contributes to that. I think kind of to the commissioner's point, the recognition that we are massive interconnected systems and people are very interconnected systems. So we have to recognize that there are multiple touches that need to happen in order to encourage success. What our outreach typically looks like is just that. It's connecting with the person, kind of meeting them where they're at. We joke around in social work 101. On extremely hot days, you'll probably see my team out handing out water, trying to get to know people, trying to understand who those individuals are, easing ourselves into these situations, because just coming in and saying, hey, you need to get clean, you need to get sober is counterproductive, and it's often really alienating for individuals. The other side of that, with water, Narcan, those levels of emergency services, is that we're trying to reduce the burden on our public safety and justice partners, the number of 911 calls, trying to keep people out of the hospital, and ultimately trying to keep people alive. You'll definitely see those services ramp up and increase on days where it's very hot, on days where we have notification that there are bad batches of, especially if we're talking about Starburst, K2, lace K2, things like that. My team's out administering Narcan, distributing Narcan, and really trying to encourage people to utilize services if they're interested. The other is for individuals who are actually connected with services, trying to bring those providers out to the individuals in the community, because the department operates what are known as community or core service agencies. And that's where people get kind of their ongoing care in the community. That's where their psychiatrists, their caseworkers, all of those are housed within those entities. And like I said, sometimes it's difficult to connect with people. Sometimes they fall off the radar, and we really work to bring those services back out and kind of increase those touch points. We also, the department contracts under the state opioid response grant. we have a number of private providers who are providing outreach services as well. And what we will typically do is collaborate around hotspot areas so that they will take over, kind of take the lead as being the face in the entity there, and then utilize us as the emergency psychiatric evaluator. And that's really just so that we can cover the large water column of the city. Now, specific to Starburst, there have been several really interesting initiatives that happen around there. The team tries to touch binning at least once a day. What those touches look like, it incredibly varies because, you know, there could be nobody interested in talking. We could have somebody who's actually interested in going to treatment, and we're responsible for kind of everything that happens there. In addition, and just kind of, excuse me, I'm sorry, working with 5D, that was one of the initial pilot areas for our diversion program. And that's one of the spaces where we actually did see a significant number of meaningful touches for individuals, being able to connect them with services, being able to reconnect them with services, and at least starting the process, as well as bringing in some of our other social service partners. You might not want to talk to a psychiatrist or a social worker, but you're interested in doing a VI SPDAT and perhaps exploring housing, things like that. And just being able to help folks understand how to get to that next level has been one of those initiatives that's been really good. Just being honest. And then in the bad times, when things are really ramped up and there are people passing out, my team is often out there multiple times a day, again, trying to do water, trying to make sure people are moving along, not being in the heat, going, transporting to cooling centers if they're willing to, trying to transport to hospitals if we're willing to. So those are kind of all the immediate services that we provide out in the area, specifically out in Starburst. You know, we've seen fluctuations in the pockets of people. Initially it was, and, you know, just also being mindful that with several treatment facilities in the immediate vicinity, you have a very unique kind of, it creates an interesting hodgepodge of people who are present, because you have very vulnerable people and you have people who are attempting to take advantage of very vulnerable people, which often leads to some of the conflicts that people are aware of out there. And that's kind of how you wind up seeing some of those more vulnerable folks laid out, passed out, things like that. So we definitely try to be mindful and flag those situations and kind of be present. Again, you know, we are available 24/7, and we like to be invited to these because we try to stagger our schedule, and when we go out based on where we see the largest kind of groups of congregate individuals where we might be successful. However, neighbors in other jurisdictions have been very, very forthcoming with information, and it allows us to stagger, allows us to stagger how we move based on what people are saying the actual need is. And that's the luxury of the size of the program right now. So I think that hits on kind of the major points, but definitely if there are any questions about anything, I'm more than willing to share.
Sure. So I just want to take this opportunity. I see we have some questions about some other topics, and they will come up later toward the end of the meeting. The main topic I see here is from Ketty Spomer. As community members, how can we support these initiatives?
So for us, I think information is key. We do have a lot of neighbors who will either email or call a member of the team and just let us know kind of what they're seeing or what's changing, which I think is really important. We talk about problem areas in kind of this very overarching place, but then there are very micro changes that happen there. The climate changes, who's hanging out changes, the demographic, even the substances being used in some places. And when those things change, then we need to deploy the proper resources. So we encourage folks to just kind of call and give us a heads up. We get, like, not everything has to be a crisis call to my team. You can just call to share information. I'm concerned about this person. Can you go check on them? We do those sorts of things all the time as well.
And what is the best way for folks to get in touch with you?
Sure. So the best numbers, and I'll give two. Our main number is 202-673-6495. And then the site closest to you all is our office on 1905 E Street. And that number is 202-673-9300. But my teams work interchangeably. But that's just the number for the office that's right there up the street.
All right, well, thanks so much. And do we have any more questions here? Yes, so from Ketty again, if any of the other panelists from ONSE or from MPD had comments on how the neighbors could help support the work that you're doing in the community as well. And if you're talking, you're going to have to unmute yourself because I can't see you.
I think that is a wonderful question. We have just started a division where we are working with neighbors to make effective change in their own communities. We do not go into communities suggesting what change really looks like for community members. We really work with the community to determine what that looks like and then provide the supports and the coordination to help with that. Dana, I don't know if you want to speak a little bit more to that division. My colleague Carmen Berry is spearheading that initiative. We are currently working in, I believe, like 3 different communities now, those that are in our priority communities and those that aren't. So Dana, do you want to talk a little bit more about that initiative?
Sure. Thank you, Nkinga, and thank you for that question. So ONSE is developing now and it's internal, informal. Come October 1, we will formalize this concept. Right now, we're calling it a community response team where we're working really closely with community members on what can be done to quote unquote take over that community, to take back that community, drive out any negativity and any violence, and really empower that community to strengthen themselves so that our streets are safer and our communities are safer. We work closely with a lot of really strong community members. As a matter of fact, Ms. Sydelle Moore is one of our key points who we reach out to in our efforts to develop a formula almost for what strategies communities can take as they are trying to move their community forward to a more peaceful place and space. So we come out to communities, sit down, have somewhat of strategic planning meetings to find out what's needed, who are the key players, the key pillars, the key people who are at risk, some of the key places that need support, and who are some agencies or other partners who can help us. And we assist with coordinating those efforts, reaching out to those partners in a way to where that community is driving itself and accomplishing these goals on their own. We've had a few communities be successful with this, so we're pulling on those communities to kind of assist us with developing a formula for how communities can effectively get this done and how we can support with that.
All right, thanks so much, Dana. I think we'll move on. Our next speaker that we'll hear from, as promised, will be DPW. So we've got someone on the line from the Department of Public Works. I know a lot of you reach out to me with concerns about different issues around trash and litter and some of the challenges we're facing around just the upkeep of the neighborhood on a regular basis. So definitely want to hear from DPW. And I think for some people, it's not necessarily readily obvious how that relates to some of the crime challenges that we're having. But as some of you may know who, keep up with some of the emails and the listservs and the community groups, is that we've recently had several incidents where, there have been guns and drugs stashed in some of our public.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good evening. My name is Celeste Duffy. I'm the Community Relations Specialist for the Department of Public Works. I first of all want to thank you for convening this meeting and having me here tonight. Obviously, as part of the COVID response, we are not meeting in the ways we normally would have met. So the ability for communities and members of communities to adopt to new ways to meet so that we can still provide services and information is great. So I want to thank you, Commissioner, for doing that. Just a quick rundown, DPW is the agency that handles most of your municipal services. We do trash and recycling collection, street and alley cleaning, parking enforcement, litter can collection, street sweeping. Now, as many of you know, as part of the Mayor Bowser's Phase 2 reopening, a good deal of our services have been suspended for the time being. So maybe it'll be helpful for me to give you a little rundown of what we are currently doing, because our general complement of services is not currently online. So we are still obviously collecting trash and recycling at regular schedule. We are still, night operations is still handling litter can collection. We are still enforcing parking as far as safety violations are concerned. Safety violation is if you're blocking an alley or if you are parked in front of a fire hydrant. Those things we are enforcing. Other parts of parking enforcement and bike lanes we're enforcing. Other parts of parking enforcement we're not enforcing right now. And we have opened, I believe 3 weeks ago, we opened Fort Totten up for residential disposal services. I'm happy to take any questions or if there are any issues in the community regarding any of our services, I'd be happy to talk about those now. Hello?
I think Sydelle was frozen and dropped off. I'm sure she's trying to get back in.
Okay.
But if anyone had any questions, they could go into the Zoom webinar chat. And
I'll look in the Q&A and see what
Okay.
I see and just try to answer if I see anything. All right, so I see one for Fort Totten. Fort Totten is our transfer station where we allow residents to bring items. You can go on our website and find out what items we will accept. We also do e-cycling and shredding, paper shredding at Fort Totten. And those are the regular services that Fort Totten has. I believe 3 weeks ago, we opened that back up for residents to use Fort Totten as part of their disposal. So items that may not necessarily be bulk or that you may want to get rid of before you schedule a bulk collection and cannot fit into your trash or recycling can, you are welcome to bring to Fort Totten. I just advise residents to please check the website for Fort Totten really quickly and make sure that the items that you're bringing are those items that we can dispose of. Commissioner, I see you're back.
Yes, I'm back. It's good to be back. Okay. I don't know what you all covered while I was out, but I do see we have a few questions. Did you guys happen to cover anything about free services here? I see a question from LaToya Moore.
No, I just covered a question on Fort Totten, but the rest I hadn't.
Okay. Okay, sure. Well, sounds good. Well, Ms. Moore's question about whether all of those services, I think that you were just speaking about at Fort Totten, are free.
Yes, they're free to district residents.
Yeah, okay. And then we do have a question here from Mick Miller. I'm gonna read it out. It seems like much of the crime in our neighborhood is related to non-residents. Is there anything DPW is able to do with the reduced services with regard to habitual out-of-state vehicles that are violating ROSA and may be contributing to these problems?
That's actually somewhat difficult because, again, our parking services, because of the obviously COVID pandemic and the rollout of the phase 2 of reopening, is fairly restricted. Now, if there is a vehicle that is certainly in any safety violation, and even in some limited other violations, you can certainly email me. I'll give you my email before, we're done here to make sure everyone can. And I can have someone look at it. But again, our services are somewhat scaled back because we have some concerns about our personnel, their interaction in the public, and how much contact those services require our personnel to make. So in terms of safety, we've tried to limit some of that.
Okay. All right. And then we have another comment here from Desiree. While COVID has stopped the enforcement of parking, we continue to have regular violation, which makes it extremely difficult for owners with out-of-state and construction vehicles.
Yeah, if construction vehicles, we can still do some enforcement. So if there's a location where there is construction, you can email me and we can have a supervisor go look at that location. Those types of violations, I believe, are still enforceable.
Mhm. And Desiree, do you want to just share with us in the meeting, if you want to kind of type in quickly the areas that you're concerned about? I know we've had some email exchanges about doing residential permit parking near your home, and the commission passed that before the summer recess. And so that's in process, just for your awareness.
And that's actually good. Those places that want RPP to fill out those petitions and get them in now, because the people are still in the office who are able to process that. And when we eventually do move along in this process with COVID and we're ready to reopen and begin full enforcement, those things can be in place. So it's a good time now if people want those types of services to get them, get the paperwork in now while we can process it. And then once we're at full capacity again, it will easily be able to service those areas.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then I see you're typing here, and I see the 1000 block of 18th Street Northeast, L Street, K Street, and Maryland Avenue Northeast. Okay, good. I'm glad you're excited to hear that. The city's working on it. Sometimes, especially with COVID, it's gonna, some of the paperwork is taking a bit longer, but they are looking into it.
Yeah, we have people available to process that, and it's a two-step process. First is the petition from 80% of the residents, and then is also that petition, once it's certified, has to go to DDOT for signage. Signage has to be made and ordered. So,
and then I just have a quick question on that. Have there been any changes since, it's kind of hard to go door to door, due to COVID and sort of those requirements around the signatures?
You know what? Not that I'm aware of, but I can check if there's a different way that we'll accept signatures. I'm writing myself a note right now.
Okay.
That will accept signatures other than door to door, person to person. I'm not aware of it at the moment. You're the first person to ask, but I will find that out and I can email you tomorrow the response.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you. And then we had a few questions here about how best to contact you from a couple of different folks.
Okay, I'll give my email out. Email is generally the best contact. I'm Celeste, CELESTE .Duffy, DUFFIE @dc.gov.
Okay, all right. And then on a related question, Bob asks, how do I reach DPW/parking enforcement quickly if there is a developer that refuses to move or unblock our alley? They sit with dump trucks all day and only move after we ask repeatedly. Then they just circle the block and come right back around. Is there a way to just get a regular presence patrol random check-in? And Bob, this is just for my own edification. Are you referring to the alley between the 800 block of 20th and 21st Street Northeast? And you can type that answer in. I'll keep an eye out for that while Ms. Duffy's answering your question.
Okay, so there's two things. First, we would definitely advise you to do a 311 request. I know sometimes people don't think that's fast, but the one advantage that the 311 request has is they are able to say exactly when the agency was notified, and they're able to say how quickly we responded to that notification. And that helps the resident and it helps us. Helps us to make sure we're working efficiently, and it helps you in case we're not. So if you've sent something on 311 and there's been no response for 2 days or, whatever the time period is, you'll have a record of that and a way to approach us with that request. There's also another way. Parking enforcement, which we call PEMA, actually has a customer service line. And on our website, if you go on to parking enforcement, I can't remember it off the top of my head, but they have an actual customer service line that's just for parking enforcement. So once you do a 311 request, if you're not comfortable to think that that's going to get the type of attention you need, you can call that customer service line for parking enforcement and relay your concern there as well.
Okay, all right, and I appreciate that. And just for your awareness, Bob's talking about the other alley. So actually, it's both sides of 20th Street in the alley. So on the
All right, I wrote
odd
that down.
side and the even number side.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. All right. And then just I know we had an incident where really DBH and DPW were both involved about a week and a half ago, where there were human feces in the alley behind L Street. And so I know we have a few of those neighbors on the line who were concerned about that. Last I heard that had been cleaned up. And you neighbors can jump in if that's not the case, or you've seen in other locations. And I think MPD was involved there as well in trying to help track down that individual who's been doing that.
Well, if I could just speak really quickly, and then I'll certainly let Mr. Hall take it from there. DPW does not handle the sort of human feces issue. I mean, we do street and alley cleaning, but because of the danger in handling and the medical danger that can come with handling human feces, we don't directly handle that per se. What we will do is once, if there's a homeless encampment, and once an encampment, there's a whole process for how an encampment would get cleaned up. Once all of that process is done, at the end of that process, DPW is a part of the cleanup of the remaining debris and maybe items that may have been left on the street or as part of the encampment. But just in general, the handling of human feces is something that really has to be, you really need to know what you're doing to do that, because it's possible to get all kinds of disease and infection from managing that. So we don't directly manage that in that way.
All right. Okay, and then I just had a comment from one of the neighbors. It did not look cleaned. So I'll continue to try to help on some coordination with that. I know they did some alley cleaning there, but I think maybe, as Celeste mentioned, that issue still has not been fully addressed. Okay. All right, do we have any other questions from folks? I see one more question popping up here. Why does cleanup, who does clean up that sort of stuff? I've cleaned up blood twice after officers responded, once to a shooting and once to a stabbing. So Ms. Duffy, did you have any response as to who does help with?
I think that's the Department of Health, and I believe possibly even OSHA, because there are requirements for how to deal with bodily fluids.
Okay.
All right. So blood, urine, feces, those types of things. There are a lot of requirements on exactly how to deal with that and manage that. So I believe that would be the Department of Health.
Okay, all right. And I see we've got one more question here. Latoya Moore, what about rodent and pest control in alleyways and the neighborhood? Who should we contact? It's all because, a lot of it is because of the construction, the rodents have increased.
Rodents is definitely the Department of Health. There's a man, his name is Jerome Brown. He runs the vector abatement program, and he can come out, he can abate, they'll do a study, and they're very, very successful. When trash, this is our part, when trash is properly containerized, the Department of Health can be very successful at eradicating rodents out of the area. But he would be gerard.brown at dc.gov.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then we have one more question here from Katie Walsh. I'd like to address the litter cans. And I think Katie's talking about the removal of the cans, especially on some of the interior streets in our area.
I need some locations. I'm not sure that we've removed litter cans. I mean, the places where I am aware that we've removed litter cans were generally in the downtown corridor when there were protests, and some of those litter cans were either set on fire or were being used to hide dangerous instruments. But as far as outside of the downtown corridor, I'm not aware of any litter cans that have been removed, but if one has, please email me the location and I can have that looked into.
So several of the cans actually in our area were removed. So we had some on residential streets. So some of the commercial streets, you know, in most neighborhoods already have litter cans. In our area, some of the residential streets also had additional litter cans. So like 18th Street, 19th Street, I Street, and those cans weren't really being picked up that often.
Yeah, I don't think those were our cans. DPW doesn't put cans on residential streets. Our can collection for litter cans is night operations. And generally we don't have, residents do not welcome us to come on their streets at 2 or 3 in the morning with big trucks banging cans around at that time. So we keep our cans in commercial areas. You may want to check and see if those cans belong to someone else.
So those cans did belong to DPW, and for whatever reason, we had them on those residential streets anyway. And I think part of what you're talking about was in part the reason for them not really being picked up often. I don't think the city is in support of returning the cans to the neighborhood, but I think it's a concern for Katie. And so she just wants to know what the process would be for getting them back.
You can send me an email and I'd be happy to look into that for you. But generally, there may be some exception for some reason, but generally, our litter cans are on commercial streets. They're not in residential areas.
Yeah.
And it is because the night operation is very difficult to conduct in a way that would be pleasing for residents. Yeah. And which is probably why they weren't being serviced.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for your response on that. We're going to open up the floor. We have just a few minutes left, you guys. I'm sorry. We had an action-packed meeting with a lot of questions for our agency. So we have just about 7 minutes left. So I think what I'll do here is take this opportunity to give some community updates. If Commissioner Blacknell wants to give a quick update on some of the things that she's working on, and then we'll, open up whatever time we have left to questions or whatever topics that you guys didn't happen to get to during today's meeting. So just a very brief update from me. We are trying to wrap up the summer crime initiative, but I'd like to see that rolled into a fall crime prevention initiative. And so there's been some effort behind the scenes on, seeing what we can do about the continuity of resources. I think especially as we continue to see the fallout from COVID, we've seen a lot of changes in our neighborhood, a lot of changes in the street life. And so I think having the additional wraparound services that come with being part of that initiative are going to be important for us as we try to make it through a really challenging time. In addition, we have on September 17th, you've been seeing these green signs, at least 35 of them. I personally take them to polls myself, put up all over the neighborhood to make people aware of the upcoming zoning hearing. So we already had, as many of you know, over the past several years at this point, I think about 5 years so far, a variety of hearings about, how the neighborhood should be zoned. And so we're at a point where basically kind of for those of us who have been here for a while, the two opposing views are the, historic designation and being included in that designation for Kingman Park, and whether we want to go with the RF4 zoning, as proposed by, the ANC and the Office of Planning right now, which would allow for some additional growth, probably about double what we see for our townhouse lots in the area. And so we do have some information posted about that on ANC 5D's website, including some of the previous community meetings for folks who might have missed them. You can watch those videos there because we do record these. All right, Commissioner Blacknell, if you want to give your updates on things you have going on. I think you're on mute. You're on mute, Commissioner Blacknell. Okay, I'm just going to go to a question while we get Commissioner Blacknell able to speak. We have a question from Desiree W. How do we initiate a single sale ban for the neighboring liquor stores? This is certainly contributing to the increased crime, loitering of non-residents in our community, and I agree. I think one of the things that that strikes me is that this typically happens at a council level. And so you'll notice that right across the street from us in Ward 7, they had a ban for quite some time, and you just didn't see, some of the same issues that we had on our side of Benning Road. A lot of the way that we've been trying to work that out is by coming up with individual agreements with the stores as their licenses are renewed every 3 years. The previous commissioners on ANC 5D, didn't support limiting those types of sales or really coming up with agreements with the liquor store owners about how to conduct business in our community. But these are only 2-year appointments. So the next time that would come up would be during the next cycle because the liquor license is renewed every 3 years. So that would be an issue that would really come up for us in 2021. But that's a good question. All right, Commissioner Blacknell, I think we can hear you now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good evening, everybody. My name is Commissioner Blacknell. I'm the ANC Commissioner for 5D4. And right now, I'm working with the Kingman Park Civic Association, staying on reopen. It's kind of hard because I'm a healthcare worker and the same healthcare worker that stay home. So I am working with the Park Civic Association, staying online, and also I'm pleased to see that they are working on the speed hump in the different areas.
Okay. And I think some of us couldn't hear you. It was breaking up a little bit. So I just want to kind of reiterate some of the key points I think I heard you made about speed bumps being installed in the area. I know there had been a long-standing request for those speed bumps. And the fact that, as a healthcare worker, you've been doing a lot just professionally to work on things at work and try to help people through the pandemic, in addition to the things that you're doing in the neighborhood. Okay. All right. So we are at exactly 6:59 p.m. I want to thank everyone for coming out this evening and asking some really great questions and being part of the conversation about how we can move things forward in our community. I want to thank all of our agency partners for all of the hard work that they've been doing. They've been outside. I don't know if some of you have seen kind of the summer blitz pictures that we sent out about some of the work that we've been doing, but these folks have really been out in the middle of the hot day, really trying to engage with folks in our neighborhood, who need their help and services. So thanks so much to everyone. My inbox is always open. I know the same is true for Commissioner Blacknell, and I am at 5D05@anc.dc.gov. And Commissioner Blacknell is at 5D04@anc.dc.gov. In case you want to contact either one of us or just couldn't remember who the agency contacts were, we'd be happy to put you in touch with them. Thanks so much again, everyone, and have a great evening.
Thank you for having us.
Take care.
Thank you.